As slaves in Egypt, the Israelites forgot about the God of their forefathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It was a dog-eat-dog world, and they were just trying to survive. As slaves, their human value came from their work, from what they were able to produce. But God, through Moses, breaks the Israelites out of Egypt and sets about creating a people for himself. His ultimate goal with this people is to get them to trust him as their provider, to trust him with their livelihood, not themselves and how hard they worked. They learned to work so hard in Egypt because they believed that life was up to them. If you're gonna survive, you gotta put in the work. But God says to them, no, your ability to produce wealth comes from me, not from how hard you work. After God breaks them out of Egypt and they're walking through the desert, God provides for them. When they get hungry, he feeds them. When they get thirsty, he finds water for them to drink. And because he's a good God, he even indulges their desire for a good barbecue by raining down quail for them to eat in the desert. And when the Israelites get about a month's walk outside of Egypt and they arrive at Mount Sinai, and they're far enough away from Egypt that they feel safe and comfortable, God begins his training program with the Israelites. And this is where it gets interesting. Contrary to what you might think, God's first priority was not in giving them a list of moral rules to follow. He doesn't sit them down like a school teacher. Rather, he gathers them together like a coach on the first day of practice, and he tells them how to organize their time. I'm sure they were shocked. There's a story I heard once about legendary coach John Wooden, who would gather his players, his new recruits, on the first day of practice and teach them how to tie their shoes. I bet that's how the Israelites felt. The Israelites just wanted to get to the promised land, just like John Wooden's basketball players probably just wanted to play basketball. But God stops them at Mount Sinai, and he gives them specific times of the day, of the week, and of the year where they had to stop working, to take breaks, and to celebrate life. This is crazy to me. This is the God that we serve, a God whose first priority is to get the Israelites to stop, to be disciplined about resting, about celebrating, about food and people, all in thanksgiving to him before they ever made it to the promised land. He says, these are the things that make life sacred, not work. You currently live to work. I want you to work to live. At Sinai, God says something to the effect of this. Look, you've been grinding away in Egypt for the past 400 years. Every day has become like Groundhog Day for you because you work every day. Life has become gray for you, but I didn't create life for it to be boring, for you to work nonstop and then die. If you zoom out a bit, you see that the books of Exodus and Leviticus are God giving Israelites a framework, a system for how to organize their time. Essentially, he says this. First, here's how I want you to break out your year. Throughout the year, there will be specific festivals and holy days where I want you to stop work for several days on end and celebrate your salvation from Egypt that I provided for you because I love you. Secondly, he says, here's how I want you to break out your week. There's 7 days in a week, and you can only work 6 of them. On the 7th day, I command you to stop working and to celebrate life. Because even I, the God who created the entire universe and who never gets tired, took time on the 7th day to stop working and enjoy what I created. Don't worry about how you're gonna provide for yourself or for your family. I'll give you food to eat on the 7th day. Trust me. And finally, he says, here's how I want you to break out your days. There are specific times of the day where I want you to stop working to gather provision for yourself and actually sacrifice some of what you have so that you'll remember that it's me who provides for you. That's crazy to me. God gave the Israelites a way of life before he brought them into their purpose. God gave them a system or a framework for how to be the kind of people that everyone else would look at and say, how are they so healthy and happy and prosperous when we work way harder than they do? But following this framework takes a lot of discipline and practice. In fact, you could say that the entire 40-year period in the desert was the Israelites learning to trust God by practicing this framework, practicing to stop working, stop gathering food on the seventh day, taking time throughout each day, throughout each week, throughout each year to celebrate life in thanksgiving to God. What's also crazy to me is that the first Christians weren't actually known as Christians. They were known as followers of the way of Jesus. And because Jesus was a Jew and he didn't come to replace the law but to fulfill it, a lot of the things were similar. They still had celebrations throughout the year, some of which coincided with the Jewish celebrations like Passover. But it was now the Christian Passover, Pascha, which celebrated the death and resurrection of Jesus. There was Pentecost, but now it celebrated the descent of the Holy Spirit. The daily prayer hours were still celebrated at the same times, but they were celebrated differently. Instead of animal sacrifices for the morning and evening sacrifice, they became sacrifices of praise because Jesus was the last and ultimate sacrifice. The way of Jesus is slightly different from the way of the Jews, but the point is the same. God gives us specific times of the day, specific times during the week, and specific times during the year to stop working and to pray, to spend time with God and learn to trust that He's good, that He loves us, and that He's in control of our livelihood. That's it. Prayer is God's primary means of our salvation, of making us mature believers or trusters in God. But prayer doesn't happen, or at least very rarely happens spontaneously. If you want to make prayer a habit and be consistent at it, it has to be planned. That's why God gave us this framework of time. And that's why I incorporated these Christian times into the Peace Planner. Specific times of the day to stop and pray to God. Specific times of the week to remember that God is in control of your life. And specific times of the year to stop and enjoy and celebrate life.